Hello, I'm the Deer Runner, and in this analysis video, I will be continuing my research into Deku's original Quirk, which in their world superpowers are called quirks. I want to state I will be making each video in a series with the intent a new viewer will easily be able to understand it by going over the basics in detail. Which this will be covering the events Deku trying to enter UA High, the most prestigious superhero school after All Might chooses him to be his chosen inheritor of the ultimate power. This will contain spoilers for the My Hero Academia series. This is the final spoiler warning. So now the first event. This one was Deku going through a massive, months-long training event run by All Might to get his body strong enough to not instantly die from using the power one for all. Which I want to state again, powers in the world are called quirks, to avoid any confusion. Which he has been chosen by All Might to receive his power, and responsibilities of being the world's greatest hero. Becoming the symbol of peace, by receiving the power one for all from All Might. And we can easily see science manipulation happened, as Deku unrealistically completed the training event that was to clear a section of a debris-filled beach of everything, but since Deku stated he desired to go beyond.
I don't just want into UA, I want to excel. I want to be like you. I want to be the greatest hero in the world.
So his Quirk would of course manipulate for the maximum of what Deku desired. By having on this last day, by All Might's perception, the entire beach was cleared, so the maximum which Deku desired completed on the last day of training. Which Deku desired to train every day, so both were timed to happen together, which is completely unrealistic. Which it took months to do, which if it wasn't manipulated should have been incomplete or finished earlier than last day.
Hey, holy crap, kid. You even cleaned up outside the area I told you to. Seriously, there's not one speck of trash left on this beach. Only a few minutes to spare, but you exceeded my expectations. It's you, crying 10 months ago. Look how far you've come. Such improvement.
Which this Quirk always activates when Deku desires things, then manipulates him to fulfill those desires. But there was no math given. The list of training Deku was shown is not shown to us, though it was detailed, and no idea how much area he was supposed to clear, compared to what he did, or how big the beach is. All there was is a clear desire with predictable by his original Quirk nature outcomes. Next event, the UA entrance exam. This is one is going to be perfect for reintroduction of his original scanning Quirk, as he has to use all of his Quirk's core functions a lot. Which of course his desire was to pass. So what his Quirk was aiming for, which happened. This event was for most participants a competition to destroy enough robots to get enough combat points to win in a large city training environment. But Deku's one-for-all power would only allow him to destroy one robot, as one attack would rip his body apart, so he had to unknowingly use that not told to them hero points, which you get points by helping others. Which, since his Quirk has large levels of scanning, it can be expected to listen in on the ones running this event to find us out, which Deku had to destroy the big skyscraper-sized robot in an attempt to save someone, or had no chance and wasn't aware of he could only use his Quirk once, but his Quirk scanning solved this limitation. We can see clearly first Deku had to avoid any of those smaller robots, till the hidden massive robot is revealed. So to do this, his Quirk obviously doesn't tell Deku anything directly. It manipulates his perception and decisions to keep him from attacking any of the smaller robots. So we see Deku not notice the event started, despite he was in a crowd, massive crowd that all noticed and ran, making a lot of noise and movement, but he was oblivious. Which with that amount of noise and movement, it should have been impossible, especially for someone who's so good at combat like Deku is. So it was mental manipulation to keep him from noticing the crowd moving away from him, allowing them to clear the robots out in front of him, so he won't get to any. Then use scanning to know what to do to make him move in directions where the robots aren't. So mental manipulation, shooting direct on travel, to avoid robots sending him in the wrong direction, which scanning determines where the correct direction is, and freeze him with physical manipulation when a robot got close, allowing others to take it out. Which Deku's original quirk main power is to physically and mentally manipulate Deku to move him around as a pawn. That his scanning power determines the way to do it to fulfill his desires. Since Deku never shows this level of incompetence in any other situation, like freezing and being oblivious to obvious things around him, it is a clear sign something was affecting him, which all symptoms match his quirk holding him back to win. Which had held Deku back long enough for the big robot to appear, but Deku was still in the game. We look at where Deku was when the big robot was revealed. He was somehow positioned directly in its path, with a clear view of the closest group to it, that would experience the highest level of debris falling on them and be the first that needs to run or get trampled. While Deku was about just out of the range of the falling debris, a perfect position to observe anyone in need of help, from the most likely to need help, which is the most common type of action Deku's original quirk does. It moves him into position, which only one person, Uraraka, had seemed to have gotten pinned by debris, though unknown to Deku, her powers made it so she likely wasn't even injured, just shaken up, which her powers makes falling debris not effective against her. So it was likely why she ended up there, as she probably wanted a big robot scaring people off to hunt down robots without competition, but it was a bit overwhelming, but still she was fine, or she would have got crushed by that. Deku then ran back to save her, and somehow without any form of training or experience, used One for All to jump to the height of a skyscraper and punch the giant robot face in by hitting directly in the middle of the face, a perfect headshot, causing massive explosions throughout it. So somehow perfect headshot with a unreasonable large distance traveled, hitting a moving target, causing a chain reaction of explosions that isn't seen in any other one of those robots destroyed, and Deku was in the most likely spot to do it for heroic reasons, which it clearly was his quirk putting on a grand show to impress the judges, to maximize the amount of hero points he gets, using physical manipulation to precisely move Deku in the way he needed to hit the robot that his scanning ability determines. Now, Deku's original quirk can strongly analyze superpowers and everything around it, which in their world are called quirks, but it is clear it is not able to analyze One for All, as the many different types of things it can do wasn't utilized in this event and for many more to come. One for All being the greatest superpower, showing off power no quirks are able to match, is basically for scanning something that can be expected if a quirk can't be scanned. And that would be that quirk, if it is possible, but in this case it is still needed to use it to precisely have Deku hit the robot. Which we look at how it broke every body part, used his 2 legs and 1 arm, with no sign it held back at all. Even so, it can't scan that many ways it can use it due to the complexity, just simply asking what is the max amount of power it can release through a body part, and in what direction it can fully release that power to launch him a large distance, is a lot simpler, and should be able to be done with how simple that one aspect would be compared to the rest of it. Which Deku did basic movements with just a full-blown max power move. Then after Deku fell and had a backup plan to use his remaining arm to stop his fall, but Uraraka of course was still below him, which she instead used her powers to save him, preventing them from seeing if Deku could save himself, so added pure self-sacrifice, even more hero points on top of the many broken bones, so massive level of self-sacrifice. So this was a grand display completely geared toward maximizing the amount of hero points to win, as getting enough combat points was impossible. Though it is clear the hero side shows no sign they know of Deku's original Quirk, Deku's original Quirk was the only possible way Deku would have been able to win that event, and they needed Deku to enter UA as a student. But he didn't need to win to enter UA high as a student. There was a general studies course in UA for people who are smart enough but not powerful enough to be put in the hero course. Which from there, a person in the general studies course can demonstrate their potential and earn their way into the hero course. So clearly, this is what they intended Deku to do, as they did send him in there to fail to just get him in the system, so no one would ask the question on why they brought someone outside the system in while the powers are looking very similar to All Might's. Well, the literal principle isn't on it, so obviously was going to get to avoid suspicion. That's kind of like powers that can be transferred is something that you have highly classified, so they have to avoid making those types of powers obvious. And they would have stopped all this if they had even remotely known Deku's original quote, but what it did in the event covered in the first episode of the series. So they had no idea it was there at this point, but they are the observant type, so I doubt it will remain hidden from them, and some early point we can expect they catch on this quirk. Though once a higher sub clearly has a problem with restraint, so this likely means there's another bit of a problem that they're dealing with if they're not telling Deku. Because they should have done it by now, if they had known, unless something is going wrong. That seems to be all the information stored here, so I'll end my video here. So we have now seen that this quirk does have reasonable limits on the extent of its ability to scan things due to their complexity, no matter how close and long around it he is. Though there are several limits and weaknesses we haven't talked about yet, as clearly if you watch this series, you know Deku doesn't seem to fail a lot, despite his omnipotent scanning quirk, in ways these explanations so far doesn't take into account. But also we see this quirk is devastatingly manipulative, which it seems to always have a high chance of taking control of the situation Deku faces. Which if it does, it basically wins. But that easy path of manipulation is about to end, as now UA will heavily control and force Deku in situations Quirk has nowhere close free range to manipulate. Through structured training, which we will see it struggle and unable to avoid weaknesses it has, letting us see them and give us ample clues on the way it works during the beginning of him being a student at UA High. Which will be enough for us to identify actually how this quirk is alive, which how it is alive actually makes a lot of these weaknesses make sense as a side effect of how it's alive. This has been a Deer Under the Run of Deer. Thanks for watching.